Africa has this unique biodiversity everybody talks of. When we talk of Africa, of course, we think of the Great Five, as you can see. When people come to Africa for safari, definitely, is to see these big Great Five animals. One thing about Africa is that African people have more than 2,000 languages. And through generations, they have weaved a complex and dynamic association with this biodiversity, such that in every aspect of African lives and their cultures, biodiversity is involved. So biodiversity in Africa actually is a very part of your identity. So that's why it's very important to understand the intricacies between the Africans and biodiversity and how that affects them. And one important aspect that my research focuses on, as Susina said, is about the wildlife trade and the people who consume wild meat. In Africa, we call it bush meat. So one thing about bush meat is that it is seen as a threat because it's a source of pandemics. We know about COVID going on, we know about Ebola, the monkeypox, but also the trade is somehow accelerating the sixth mass extinction. So it's an existential threat. And so one thing with this is that the increasing human populations, of course, as the presentation showed yesterday, in 2050, 1 out of 4 people in the world live in Africa. And because of a large population, people need more resources, and therefore they tend to encroach more on the forest, and that leads to over-exploitation of natural resources. You can think of pangolins, you can think of rhino horns, you can think of elephant tusk, and also poor governance. And if you add climate change to that, that has been contributing to an unprecedented decline in biodiversity in Africa. And all this has been facilitating the emergence of infectious diseases, because as the climate gets warmer, vectors of pathogens, they're able to spread to areas they're unable to get before. And so this is a serious problem that should be addressed. So understanding this biodiversity and the intricacies is very, very important because it's an existential threat. So it's not just studying biodiversity, but the beauty of nature. You're studying it and understanding it because our survival depends on it. And so advances in artificial intelligence, material sciences, and our technology can help us to really understand how we can study this biodiversity, but especially how we can protect this biodiversity. So a meeting like this one is an excellent opportunity for those in natural sciences and biodiversity to network with those in the hard sciences, so we can understand how together we can make the world a better place and a safer place, so that pandemics like the COVID, like the monkeypox recently, can be averted. So I'll give the floor to my co-chair, who will tell you more about artificial intelligence and how technology can be used and has been used to solve biodiversity.
What can AI do for biodiversity? So I'm a subject matter expert for the Global Partnership in AI, which just recently started a new program on biodiversity. So GPI, the Global Partnership on AI, which is the international body kind of organizing, setting the opportunities, challenges, and policy on AI, and being kind of global think tank, is just recently started focusing on biodiversity. Shocking. And this is, so report is coming out, report will come out very like imminently, in fact, at the end of October on AI and biodiversity. Why is this urgent? Why is this an issue? Why is this an opportunity? You may have seen the report that just came out yesterday, the WWF Biennial Living Planet report, that said that 69, sorry, that's the dyslexic in me, 69% drop in wildlife population on average in less than a lifetime, right? This is shocking numbers across the globe. That's the measure of biodiversity loss that we have. And the thing is, while that number in and of itself is shocking, we actually don't have good data, good numbers on what we're losing and how fast. Biodiversity, repeatedly, UN has stated over the last several years that biodiversity has a data problem. In addition to every other problem, biodiversity has a data problem. And so that's the opportunity first and foremost opportunity for AI to really address the data problem. Not that we don't have data, we don't have actionable data. There's data all over the place. We don't have actionable data. We don't have data that we can actually use for decision making. We don't know, for example, what's the global population size of iconic species like polar bears and killer whales. We don't know the year-to-year population fluctuations of the local species like Grevy's zebras. And so to address this, one quick example of what AI can do for you. This is a partnership of AI, very massive community engagement for conservation in Kenya. Here, the event, the Great Grevy's Rally, which was first done in 2016, where hundreds of people around the country drive and take pictures of Grevy's zebras, which is the endangered species of zebra, not the ones that many of you are thinking about. These are not the ones in Serengeti with wildebeest. These are 95% of them are in Kenya, and the total estimated population size is about 3,000. After 2 days of taking pictures, with the youngest photographer being 3 years old, right? Everybody was engaged, from park rangers and school kids to U.S. ambassador to Kenya at the time. This is 2 ambassadors ago, 2016, and the tourists with massive telephoto cameras, right? 50,000 images later, we had the ability to go through that using AI and identify not only species, but each individual animal, zebra, right? Zippy the zebra, Zoe the zebra, Zach the zebra, and provide the most accurate count of the population, the most accurate census. It was so good that Kenya Wildlife Service decided, went completely 180 from this is not how we're gonna count population to this is exactly how we're going to do it every 2 years. So the event was repeated in 2018, 2020, and gearing up for the next one, skipping COVID. It has become the basis not only for the International Unit for Conservation of Nature global population size estimate, but also the basis for the Kenyan government's proclamation and the policy for endangered species management, putting resources, money, land, and policy to support the species based on this event where AI partnered with like ordinary Kenyans, right, to enable them to be the data contributors and decision makers in this process. Kenya Wildlife Service Assistant Director said, this shows the power of citizen science and machine learning for conservation. I love the combination of the two. And this is the first time that he used the words machine learning were used by Kenya Wildlife Service ever. So with that, what are the opportunities for funding biodiversity research? So there's several, and particularly US, Africa, we focus here. So Eric and I put together a few opportunities that are out there. USAID is the biggest funder of international research in US. And so as in from US, international, so this is their map of Africa funded research that they do, and they particularly focus on biodiversity. If you want to find here, grants.gov is the main source where they publish the opportunities, and there are different ones for different kind of specific directions in biodiversity. They consider this a very, very, very important direction and funding. The other part is there's actually National Science Fund, US National Science Foundation. They had Dimensions of Biodiversity program, which they sunsetted in 2020, so there is no more. But what they do have now, these are 2 new programs that they just started recently, and they have many international partners for each one of them. In Africa, their main partner is the National Research Foundation of South Africa. So they fund partnerships in South Africa for this, but research projects can be funded in other places in Africa. So this is the Biodiversity on a Changing Planet, BOCP, and the Organismal Response to Climate Change, or RCC. So both, you can read through this. This is multi-directorate, multidisciplinary approach to biodiversity loss challenge. And as of April this year, the very exciting thing is that the NSF partnered up with the Paul Allen Foundation, Family Foundation, which is the first time that NSF partnered with any private foundation ever to fund research. And that partnership is in biodiversity research. That's that important, right? And so they are contributing funding to fund more research in those two programs. So they're not starting new programs yet through this partnership, but will be funding through the existing mechanisms, just more research.
So to move on with the funding opportunities, this list is not exhaustive. It's just a few examples because of time. We could not, because we want to give a full list. We can spend the next 2 days here. So there are lots of funding opportunities for biodiversity, and not just for biologists, even those in artificial intelligence, material science, whatever your field. You can choose to work on biodiversity. If your work is related to biodiversity, there's funding opportunities for you. So you also have the US Fish and Wildlife Service. It also funds research, not just in the US, but internationally. And a lot of Africans, of course, who have won this funding. So they give a lot of money. So there's also an opportunity to fund research on birds, on, in fact, on vertebrates, on invertebrates, so be it terrestrial or marine. And you also have the Segre Foundation. So not just in the US, the Fondation Segre, the Segre Foundation, which is based in Europe, they also fund research internationally. So whether you do it in the US or you do it in Africa, they give a lot of money for that. So there are lots and lots and lots of opportunities.